You've been there, right? You're in a conversation, talking about something, feeling totally confident, and then it hits you. You actually have no idea what you're talking about. Well, today we're going to dig into this really fascinating cognitive bias that gets pretty much all of us. It's this powerful illusion that we get the world in way more detail than we actually do. And we're going to start with something you probably use every single day. We're calling it the toilet test. And trust me, it's a simple but wow, surprisingly effective way to show us just where the limits of our own knowledge really are. Okay, so take a second. Genuinely think about it. On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 is I have absolutely no clue, and 10 is I could build one from scratch. How well do you get how a toilet works? Got your number? Lock it in. Most people, when you ask them this, they land somewhere around a 5, 6, maybe even a 7. I mean, it seems simple enough, doesn't it? All right, now let's actually put that number to the test. Imagine this. An alien pops into your bathroom. No joke. Points at the toilet and asks for a complete step-by-step breakdown of how it flushes. So, what happens when you push the handle? How does the dirty water get sucked away? And how does the clean water just perfectly refill the bowl without overflowing? What are those things inside the tank even called? The flapper? The fill valve? Yeah, suddenly it's not so simple, is it? That feeling right there, that dawning uncertainty, that's exactly what we're talking about today. So the gap, the one between how well we think we know something and how well we can actually explain it, well, it's not just a weird feeling. It actually has a name, and the science behind it is seriously cool. It's called the illusion of explanatory depth. You might see it as IOED. The term came from a couple of Yale researchers, Leonard Rosenblit and Frank Keel, way back in 2002. And it's basically this cognitive bias that's, well, it's everywhere. It's our brain tricking us into believing we understand these complex systems, cause and effect stuff, in way more detail than we really do. And this quote just hits the nail on the head, right? Think about it. We use stuff like toilets, zippers, our smartphones every single day. That constant use, it creates this really powerful feeling of familiarity. It's like an old friend. But here's the trick. Our brain takes that feeling of familiarity and mistakes it for a real deep understanding of how the thing actually works. So you might be wondering, how did these guys actually prove this? And this is where it gets really brilliant, because their experiment was just so simple. They took totally ordinary objects, think of a zipper, and first they asked people, hey, rate how well you understand this. Then came the tough part. They said, okay, now write down a super detailed step-by-step explanation of exactly how it works. And after they struggled through that, they were asked to rate their understanding one more time. And the result? It was consistent across the board, and it was powerful. The second people were forced to confront the reality of what they didn't know, after they tried and failed to really spell out the mechanics, their confidence just fell off a cliff. That simple act of trying to explain completely shattered the illusion. But here's what's so wild about all this. This whole illusion of explanatory depth thing, it's not a bug in our system. It's actually a feature. This isn't some personal failing on your part. It's a direct reflection of how we as humans have evolved to think and, well, to survive. Okay, so researchers like Stephen Sloman and Philip Fernbach, they argue that we're successful as a species precisely because we don't have to know everything. We're not supposed to. We live in this huge interconnected community of knowledge. We basically outsource the details to other people. The plumber gets the toilet, the engineer knows how the zipper works, the software developer gets the code. We're dividing up all the mental work. And what that means is something kind of profound. The lines around our own personal knowledge are, well, they're super blurry. Your brain doesn't put up a neat little fence between what's stored in your head and all the expertise that's stored in the heads of everyone around you. We basically treat all that community knowledge as if it's our own. Okay, so toilets, zippers, that's one thing. But what happens when we take this exact same cognitive bias and apply it to something way more complex and a lot more emotionally charged? I'm talking about our political beliefs. Yeah, it turns out that this illusion, it plays a huge role in today's deeply divided political world. You see it all the time, right? People hold these really extreme positions on super complex policies, things like healthcare reform or tax law, and they hold them with this incredible sense of certainty, even when their actual understanding of how those policies would work is, well, pretty shallow. And this is where it gets really interesting, because it all comes down to how you challenge those beliefs. If you ask someone why they support a policy, they'll just dig in their heels. They'll give you their reasons, their values, their justifications, and it actually makes their belief even stronger. But if you change the question and ask them how would that policy actually work step by step? Now you're forcing them to face that illusion of understanding. And what happens? a lot of the time it actually leads to more moderate, less extreme views. It creates a little bit of intellectual humility. Now you'd think, okay, we have the internet now. We have all the world's information right in our pockets. Surely that solves this problem. But here's the irony. The research suggests that the very tool we use to get smarter, the internet, might actually be making this whole illusion even worse. Check this out. In one set of experiments, the findings were just startling. You had one group of people who were just given an article to read. Afterwards, they rated their understanding at about a 4.7 out of 7. Okay. But another group, they had to search for that exact same article online. And their self-rated understanding, it jumped all the way to a 5.4. Just the act of searching for it made them feel like they knew more. But here's the twist, and this part is absolutely wild. When they actually tested what people learned, the results were flipped completely on their head. A big meta-analysis shows that the people who just read the article, they consistently learned more. They could give more accurate explanations than the people who searched for it. So let that sink in. Higher confidence, but lower actual learning. How crazy is that? So what on earth is going on here? Well, the researchers think it's all about how search engines are designed. See, when you search, you don't just get a boring list of links. You get titles, you get little previews, you get those featured snippets right at the top that kind of give you the answer right away. All of that primes the information. It makes it feel familiar before you've even clicked. And our brain, remember, mistakes that feeling of familiarity for actual knowledge. It feels easy, so we don't put in the hard mental work of actually learning and remembering the details. And all of this brings us to this really fundamental challenge of what it means to live and learn today in the digital age. The lines are blurring, you know? It's not just between our knowledge and other people's knowledge anymore. It's between what we actually know and what we can just find. Think about it. We've gotten so good so fast at just pulling up information that we've started to confuse that ability to find with the act of actually knowing. Pulling up a fact on Google feels so quick and easy, it almost perfectly mimics the feeling of pulling a memory out of your own brain. And that just makes this illusion of knowing even deeper. So there you have it. From a simple toilet to our crazy political landscape to the way we search online every single day, this illusion is just everywhere. And maybe it shows us that real wisdom isn't about having all the answers. Maybe it's about being really, truly aware of the vastness of what we don't know. And it leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on, doesn't it? In a world where we can find infinite answers in a split second, what does it truly mean to know anything at all?